You wake up and the first thing you hear is a voice saying, "You're not good enough." Not as a thought, as a verdict. And you listen. You don't argue with it. You don't test it. You don't even ask where it came from. You stay inside it and wait for it to end. Except it doesn't end. It drags you through mistakes, through other people's faces, through failed conversations, through every moment you ever went quiet. And the worst part is that some piece of you thinks this is how it's supposed to be, that if you stop listening, you'll get complacent, lazy, dangerously calm. So you keep listening and you call it realism. Overcoming negative thoughts here isn't about forcing yourself to think differently. It starts the moment you stop automatically obeying what shows up in your head. By the end, you'll see why that voice gets louder exactly when you try to shut it up. You'll notice the extra second people usually miss, and it will become clearer what exactly is being stolen. 4 a.m., a small kitchen. You're standing at the table with a mug of cold coffee, fingers spinning a spoon like if you find the right rhythm, your head will finally fall into order. The cold metal of the mug sticks to your fingers, condensation running down the rim, and somehow your skin feels thinner than it should. The coffee smells like coffee, but not warm, sharp, slightly metallic. The fridge hums evenly, like it's making sure you don't fall into silence, and the clock ticks so that every tick sounds like a little "it won't work." Inside, the same line repeats, "It won't work, you're not worthy, now's not the time, get yourself together first." And it's not just the 4 a.m. kitchen, it shows up at work when you open a file and see a blank page and your body already knows the taste of failure. It shows up when you see an unread message and decide not to reply because your answer will be dumb, off, they'll misunderstand you. It shows up when you're about to start a plan, exercise, study, a conversation, any starting Monday, and your brain quietly drops a picture of you quitting again. It shows up in relationships when the person next to you pauses and you hear a verdict in that pause, even though they're just looking out the window. Outwardly, everything looks like ordinary life, but inside, it's like the same record, and the needle always lands on one groove. You try to get rid of the thought. Seriously, you try, even if you call it something else. You distract yourself, you pick up your phone, you start arguing in your head, listing reasons, proving you can. Or the opposite, you agree and start fixing yourself right away. Recall every mistake, break yourself into pieces, find the defect, fix it. And something strange happens every time. The harder you push the thought away, the more often it comes back. The more you tell yourself stop, the louder it gets. It's as if the brain highlights the topic in red: important, dangerous, don't miss it. There's no mysticism here. You set the volume yourself. When you decide, "I must not think this," you also tell yourself, "This is important." And the brain, which hates missing important things, begins checking. Is it still here? Now? Now? You close the door, and every 10 seconds you yank the handle to make sure it's locked. You say, "Don't think," and every 10 seconds you come back to check whether you're thinking. That's how the loop forms. Not because you're weak, but because you're vigilant. Vigilance just got stuck in the wrong place. In the kitchen, it's especially clear because almost nothing else is happening. The spoon clinks against the mug, the fridge hums, the clock clicks. In that emptiness, the thought becomes the main event. It takes the space usually filled by people, tasks, music, sunlight through the window. The body reacts honestly. Jaw tightens, shoulders lift, something in your chest goes narrow. And you call it "I'm thinking," but it's more like you're being thought. At some point, somewhere in the middle of the loop, a small shift happens that's easy to miss. The camera changes angle, and the thought stops being an enemy you have to push out of your head. It becomes a pause signal, not an order or a prophecy, just a flash, a tension. And when you see it that way, a frame appears between thought and action. Before, everything was glued, "You're not good enough," and immediately retreat, freeze, replay, cancel. Now you can see that the phrase comes first, then the familiar wave in your body, and only then you do what you always did. That gap, that extra second, exists even if you never noticed it. This is the only kind of overcoming that actually works, not defeating the thought, but not letting it make decisions for you. For a couple of sentences, that second, it's not philosophy or a trick, it's the place where the day is decided. Because right there, you either hand over control automatically, or you notice that control exists at all. And the more often you see that gap, the less you need to fight the voice to stop it from bossing you around. The thought doesn't get nicer, it still sounds rough, but its status changes. It's not a boss or a judge, it's more like an alarm light that goes off not because a real disaster is coming, but because you're approaching a place where you don't want to make a mistake, where the stakes are being accepted, not rejected, not looking foolish, not losing face. And the brain starts protecting you in the oldest way it knows, by humiliating you in advance so you don't stick your neck out. It looks cruel, but often there's a hidden attempt to control. That's why this voice loves morning. Morning isn't just a time of day, it's the moment when the day hasn't taken shape yet, and it's easy to steal. If you miss this pattern, it won't just ruin your mood, it rewrites your day. You'll start picking low-risk tasks. You'll postpone a conversation because you're not ready. You'll write messages like you're apologizing for existing. You'll hold back a little bit more than you could, not because it fits you, but because someone's already given you a grade inside. By evening, you'll feel the familiar tiredness, not from work, but from constant internal surveillance. And the sneakiest thing is, it sounds like honesty, like a sober gaze, like humility. But inside, it's not about truth, it's about control through self-punishment, about pre-negotiating shame. I'll shame myself first so it won't hurt as much if someone else does. About the fear of being seen without armor and the habit of paying for safety with your own time and attention. It doesn't aim to make you better, it aims to make you less noticeable. Negative thoughts don't disappear, but when you see what they quietly take from your day, you stop giving them the wheel, and that changes more than it seems.